millions of travelers book the Caribbean backwards. They pick the island they recognize, then hope it feels like paradise. But some of the most famous names now deliver cruise crowds, resort bubbles, inflated prices, and a version of the Caribbean that feels more manufactured than magical. So this ranks 14 popular Caribbean choices, 7 famous islands to think twice about, and 7 better alternatives that may give you more beauty, more culture, more value, or less stress. The bottom island is the most over-commercialized. The winner may be the best all-round Caribbean choice right now. Starting at the bottom, New Providence and Paradise Island, Bahamas. The water is stunning, Atlantis is impressive. And for families who want slides, aquariums, restaurants, shops, and everything built into one giant resort world, Paradise Island works. But that is also the problem. Nassau and Paradise Island can feel less like a relaxed Caribbean escape and more like a resort city attached to a cruise port. On busy days, thousands of passengers pour into town. Downtown becomes a souvenir corridor. Prices rise because the market can support them. And once you add food, drinks, taxis, excursions, and resort fees, the Bahamas fantasy gets expensive very quickly. So should everyone skip it? No, if you want Atlantis, convenience, and big resort entertainment, it makes sense. But if the dream is quiet sand, empty blue water, and that "how is this place real" feeling, there is a better Bahamas choice later on this list. Number 13. Jamaica's North Coast. Jamaica itself is incredible. The music, food, beaches, mountains, attitude, humor, and cultural power are unmatched in the Caribbean, but the tourist corridor around Montego Bay and Ocho Rios often gives visitors the most commercial version of Jamaica. Huge all-inclusive resorts, busy excursion zones, gated compounds, aggressive selling in some tourist areas, and a strange feeling that many visitors fly all the way to Jamaica, then barely experience Jamaica at all. If your goal is to stay inside a resort, eat buffet meals, book organized tours, and never think about logistics, the North Coast does that well. But if you want beauty and local culture without the same pressure and intensity, the better alternative is Grenada. That one comes much higher. Number 12. Punta Cana, Dominican Republic. Punta Cana is a vacation factory. And to be fair, it is a very efficient one. The beaches are wide, the resorts are huge, the packages are simple. Families, wedding groups, and people who want zero planning can have an easy week in the sun without leaving the property. But that is exactly why it ranks low. Once you are inside the resort bubble, the location can feel almost interchangeable. You could be in the Dominican Republic, Mexico, or anywhere else, with pools, buffets, wristbands, and evening entertainment. There is very little natural connection to local life unless you make a real effort to leave the compound. So Punta Cana is not a bad trip, it is just not the best Caribbean experience. If you want beaches, comfort, history, food, and a place that still feels like a real island, Barbados is the smarter version of this idea. And that is the mistake most people make with the Caribbean. They do not book the island that matches the trip they actually want. They book the island with the biggest marketing machine. Number 11. St. Thomas, U.S. Virgin Islands. St. Thomas is convenient, especially for Americans. No passport needed for U.S. citizens. The dollar works, flights are easy, infrastructure is familiar, and the views from the hills can be spectacular. But convenience is not the same as magic. Charlotte Amalie has become heavily shaped around cruise passengers, jewelry shops, souvenir stores, short-stop visitors, traffic, and a town center that often feels more transactional than atmospheric. And after hurricane damage reshaped parts of the accommodation scene, many smaller, more affordable stays never returned in the same way. That means the island can feel expensive for what it delivers. St. Thomas is useful, but the better experience is literally a ferry ride away. St. John comes later, and it is the island many people thought they were getting when they booked St. Thomas. Number 10. Sint Maarten. This island has a lot going for it. French food on one side, Dutch nightlife on the other. Maho Beach, where planes fly ridiculously low over the sand. Casinos, restaurants, shopping, beach bars, energy. It is fun, but it can also be too much. During high season, cruise ships unload thousands of extra people into a small space. Roads clog, beaches fill, shopping areas get crowded, and the whole island can feel busier than people expect from a Caribbean getaway. If you want nightlife, restaurants, and action, St. Maarten makes sense. But if you want space, scenery, and a slower rhythm, St. Kitts gives you a calmer version of the Caribbean without the same pressure. That is the pattern in this video. The famous island is not always wrong. It is just often the wrong match, and the better choice is usually one layer less obvious. Number 9. Grand Cayman. Grand Cayman is safe, polished, and genuinely beautiful. 7 Mile Beach deserves its reputation. Stingray City is world famous. The island is clean, organized, and comfortable. Everything works. But it is also one of the most expensive places in the Caribbean. Hotels, food, taxis, excursions, restaurants, the costs add up fast. And because the island is so polished, it can sometimes feel more corporate than characterful. For families with big budgets who value safety and predictability, Grand Cayman is a great choice. But if the main reason you are going is marine life, snorkeling, diving, and clear water, Bonaire gives you more underwater magic for less money and far less flash. Grand Cayman is the polished, expensive version. Bonaire is the ocean lovers version. And that difference matters. Number 8. Aruba. Aruba is the hardest island to put in the bottom 7 because it is objectively good. It is sunny, safe, easy, below the hurricane belt, and built for a smooth holiday. For first-time Caribbean travelers, Aruba is one of the safest recommendations. But that reputation has made it crowded and expensive. The main resort areas are heavily developed, peak season prices can be painful, and while the beaches are excellent, the experience can feel very packaged compared with islands that offer more culture, variety, and value. So Aruba is not bad, it is just no longer the automatic best choice. And the island that beats it on value, culture, color, beaches, food, and overall personality is Curaçao. If planning a trip across any of these islands, Kiwi can be useful for comparing flight routes, especially when the best destination is not the obvious package holiday one. Link below. Now the ranking flips. The next 7 islands are not perfect, but they beat the famous names because they give you a better match between cost, experience, scenery, culture, and actual Caribbean feeling. Number 7. St. Kitts. St. Kitts is the quieter alternative to St. Martin. Instead of heavy traffic, constant nightlife, and packed cruise zones, St. Kitts gives you green volcanic hills, old sugar plantations, quieter beaches, and a pace that feels more relaxed. Basseterre is small but charming. The scenery has more drama than people expect. And because development has stayed more controlled, the island has not turned into one long strip of mega resorts. The limitation is that St. Kitts is not the best beach island on this list. Some beaches are lovely, but they are not all powder white postcard perfection. Nightlife is limited too. But if you want peace, views, authenticity, and an island that still feels like itself, St. Kitts easily beats the more chaotic options below it. Number 6. Barbados. Barbados is what many travelers hope Punta Cana will be. Easy, sunny, comfortable, but still real. The West Coast has calm, beautiful beaches. Bridgetown has historic character. The road network is solid. Healthcare and infrastructure are strong. And the food scene has actual depth. From rum shops and fish fry nights to high-end restaurants, that is the difference. In Punta Cana, the resort often is the destination. In Barbados, the island is the destination. You can rent a car, explore beaches, eat locally, visit historic areas, and still have the comfort and reliability many travelers want. The catch is price. The premium West Coast can get expensive, especially around famous luxury areas. But compared with the resort bubble feel of Punta Cana, Barbados gives you a complete island rather than just a hotel attached to sand. Number 5. Exuma, Bahamas. Exuma is the Bahamas people picture before they accidentally book Nassau. The water looks unreal, sandbars appear in the middle of nowhere, tiny cays stretch into the horizon. Boat trips, hidden beaches, Thunderball Grotto, the swimming pigs. This is the fantasy version. Compared with New Providence and Paradise Island, Exuma feels like a different country. Slower, quieter, more natural, more open. It is not always cheap, and getting there takes more effort. You may need an extra flight, a boat, or more planning than a straightforward Nassau trip. But the experience gap is huge. Nassau gives you convenience and crowds. Exuma gives you the kind of blue water memory people keep talking about years later. For most travelers chasing the actual Bahamas dream, Exuma is worth the extra step. Number 4. Grenada. Grenada should be more famous than it is. Grand Anse Beach is one of the best beaches in the region. The interior is lush and volcanic with waterfalls, spice farms, rainforest, and views that make the island feel bigger than it is. It has culture, but without the same overwhelming tourist intensity as Jamaica's north coast. That is why Grenada works so well as the better alternative. You still get music, food, local personality, color, beaches, and depth, but the atmosphere feels warmer and less draining. The diving and snorkeling are strong too, including the underwater sculpture park. Accommodation and dining can offer better value than many bigger-name islands, and the whole place has that rare feeling of being developed enough to enjoy, but not so developed that the island disappears behind tourism. Grenada is the island people visit once and quietly start planning a return to. Number 3. Bonaire. Bonaire is the best alternative to Grand Cayman if your Caribbean dream is underwater. The island is world-class for shore diving and snorkeling. You do not need a complicated boat trip every time. In many places, you can walk in from the shore and be surrounded by coral, turtles, and reef fish within minutes. That is the magic. Bonaire is not trying to be a flashy luxury island. It is low-key, dry, slightly rugged, and obsessed with the ocean. Above water, you get flamingos, salt flats, small towns, protected landscapes, and a slower pace. Costs are generally more reasonable than Grand Cayman, especially if you are not chasing luxury resorts. The catch is beach style. If you want endless soft white sand, Bonaire is not the strongest choice. The coastline is often rocky and the beauty is more wild than polished. But for divers, snorkelers, nature lovers, and people who care more about reef life than resort life, Bonaire is one of the smartest Caribbean choices. Number 2. St. John, U.S. Virgin Islands. St. John is what St. Thomas wants to be when it grows quiet. A huge portion of the island is protected national park land, which changes everything. Less development, more hiking, better scenery, cleaner beaches, and that rare feeling that nature is still in charge. Trunk Bay is famous for a reason, but the real joy of St. John is exploring smaller beaches, walking trails, and finding pockets of calm that feel impossible on the busier neighboring islands. For Americans, access is easy. Fly to St. Thomas, take the ferry, use US dollars, and there is no passport requirement for US citizens. That combination is rare. Convenience and wilderness. The catch is accommodation. Because so much land is protected, supply is limited, and prices can be high, especially in peak season. But if the goal is beauty, nature, ease, and a Caribbean trip that still feels special, St. John is worth the premium. For deeper island guides, seasonal timing, and accommodation breakdowns, Horizon Insider is linked below. Number 1. Curaçao. Curaçao is the best all-round Caribbean island right now, not because it is perfect, because it has the fewest compromises. Start with Willemstad, one of the most distinctive capitals in the Caribbean. Colorful Dutch colonial buildings, street art, restaurants, cafes, history, and real urban character. Then drive west and the island changes completely. Small coves, clear water, cliff-backed beaches, snorkeling spots, quieter stretches of coast that feel far removed from Aruba's main resort zones. That is why Curaçao beats Aruba. It gives you the same below-hurricane belt advantage, strong infrastructure, and easy holiday feel, but with more culture, more variety, and generally better value. The food pulls from Dutch, Caribbean, Latin American, and local influences. Accommodation ranges from guest houses to resorts. And the island works whether you want beaches, restaurants, road trips, snorkeling, or a more independent style of travel. Curaçao is not the cheapest island in the Caribbean, but it delivers across more categories than almost anywhere else. Beaches, culture, food, weather, marine life, infrastructure, value, variety. That is the complete package. If you are comparing stays or island hopping routes, Expedia and Kiwi are linked below. Here is the real takeaway. The most famous Caribbean island is not always the best one. New Providence gives you big resorts, but Exuma gives you the dream. Jamaica's north coast gives you energy, but Grenada gives you culture with less pressure. Punta Cana gives you convenience, but Barbados gives you a real island. St. Thomas gives you ease, but St. John gives you nature. St. Martin gives you nightlife, but St. Kitts gives you calm. Grand Cayman gives you polish, but Bonaire gives you the reef. And Aruba gives you reliability, but Curaçao gives you the better overall package. So which island gets the most undeserved hype? And which quieter alternative would you actually choose? Drop it in the comments.